In a minute, but we're here to talk about empowering students on social media, basically just sharing our journey, how we became connected, what we have going on with students, some goals that we have set, and just some ways that students can share their story for your school, and also provide those opportunities that give the applicable and real digital citizenship teaching possibilities for kids.
Awesome. So my name is Taylor Siebert, for those of you that don't know me. I've started another company called Strive, and that's how Heather and I connected through that. She helps a lot with that, just around digital media. My passion is really just to empower students to create content, to share stories at their schools. And this opportunity came up over a year ago. A good friend of mine started a company called Social Assurance, and they work with banks and do marketing for banks and built a software for them. And so I started inviting him to conferences to talk to students about social media and marketing. And he came to one of our conferences and started engaging with some students, and they were really excited about creating social media content for their school. But he noticed something on their laptop. All of you have laptops, and there was a little sticky note, like literally just like that, and it had the username and password to the district's Twitter account on it. And Mr. Banker Financial Ben goes, nothing could go wrong with that, right? If that fell off and got in the wrong hands. And so he goes, we might have something that could help schools. He knew nothing about schools, so he came to me and said, hey, what if we partnered up? And so that's the story behind how Strive and Social Assurance became Class Intercom. And so I went to Heather about a year ago, it was in March, and really said, hey, you want to take a chance with this product? We're testing it out. To get students involved in the social media conversation at your school. And it goes through an approval process, and we'll share a little bit about that in a little bit. And she said yes. She was the first guest on our podcast just to talk about social media with schools, and very thankful for what she's done so far and taken just a tool, but actually execute with that. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is the education piece. We've seen some really neat things happen. Got to go with Mitch, who's in the back, to Twitter headquarters because of this, and just do a lot of neat things around social media, which is my passion. And so this goes way back, and we'll have Heather share her digcit story.
I said to Taylor, I said, it's almost like the evolution of digital citizenship. And so that's what this graphic represents for me, and some of you can recognize some of these old school social media tools or social media apps. And so basically I think back to when I started teaching middle school technology in 2004. Thank you, Jackie.
85 translators.
This is after lunch. We don't want anyone going to sleep. So it was like emergency mode.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speaking of social media, if it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have been able to contact and get our lights fixed. So back to the evolution of social media here. So in 2004, when I was teaching middle school technology, I just think back of what was I teaching then? That was, kids were getting contacted through like MSN Messenger. MSN Messenger was the big thing. And you had to meet at a certain time on MSN Messenger and have that conversation. So they were, now they're like, go home, get on this game at 4:15 and let's play each other, and they time those things. Social media then was, hey, are you going to be on MSN at 3:45 when the bus drops you off? You have to be online, you have to be connected, it's not mobile, all that type of stuff. So social media, and what I did with digital citizenship at the time was talking to kids about who are you connecting with, when are you connecting, how are you sharing that content. I even think back of like email. I did a lot with email etiquette, and what are you sharing on email, who are you connecting with, spam, that type of stuff. And so the evolution, as we all know, with social media, things have changed so much. Now, kids are on Snapchat, kids are communicating with Instagram. I don't even have to go through all the tools because all of you in the room are very familiar. And I talk to kids all the time about, your parents think it's silly, but this is where you're at. So I have a passion for teaching kids these, I don't want to say do's and don'ts, but the ways to be digital leaders. And I feel like so many times, it's like stand and deliver. Don't do this, you need to do this, don't do this, don't do that. And so it's like when students do something wrong, how are they punished? They're punished with detention. And I feel like digital citizenship is something similar to like reading and writing, the things we do with math in a classroom. If they don't know number sense, we teach them. If they don't understand phonemic awareness, or they need help with reading skills or those types of skills, we need to teach them. Digital citizenship is the same way. When you preach it to them, It's because they don't know, so we need to find applicable ways. And so when I met up with Taylor, it was like one of these things that happened, that we were in the right place at the right time. I was really striving to find a way that I could do more than just preach to kids what they should and shouldn't be doing. So I tell them they should be doing this, but I want to see it in action. I want to see it in action, and they're not going to let me creep on all their social media because that's just not right. But how can I give them opportunities to create social media content that a broad audience can see and they can be models on social media? The other piece to this, when we started sharing our story through Class Intercom, was that in my role, I was in charge of a lot of the school social media. We have administrators, curriculum directors, business managers, athletic directors with accounts on our social media that kind of help. But you guys know as well as I do in this room, we all have busy schedules. We cannot be at every event, we cannot tweet, share, Facebook, every single thing. And so the purpose of adding different people to that account was so we could spread the word. But when I tweet out or an administrator tweets out, that's their perspective. That's their view. They're at this event, they're in this classroom, they're at this activity, and that's their view. So when I talked to Taylor, he's like, I have this great idea. Let's get the social media for your school's account in the hands of students, where you become more of a facilitator and a coach, coaching them through creating that content, save you time, save administrators time, and there you have it, your authentic creation opportunities for kids to create that social media. So that's kind of where we're at now. Taylor mentioned Mitch in the back of the room. He was a student at Northwest at the time, and he was in charge of our student section that sent out content for promoting themes, activities, different things just from that student voice. So he had the passion already. He was doing what I wanted, but we wanted this stuff to start coming out from our account. So that's where that kind of evolved. Is I said, let's try this. I committed to Taylor and I said, let's try this. I have the perfect student. Funny story is I didn't know at the time I had seen this shipyard account. I'd seen the great stuff going on. And as soon as this happened, I was on this mission. I did not know which student was behind that account. So I started asking around. Many administrators didn't even know who it was. I had to ask students. I went into classrooms in the middle of the day and I'm like, somebody tell me who's in charge of this account. And that's how I figured it out. Anyway, the rest is history. We piloted it with Mitch. I'm going to let Taylor tell a story about how that kind of evolved, and then I'll continue in with what it looks like for creation, how we've built our team, and the goals for sustainability of something like this in a school system.
So yeah, Mitch and Hunter actually presented, and Mitch shared a little bit about this, but I would have never met Mitch if it weren't for Heather. And so it's just really neat how opportunities like that pop up and then you take advantage of those. And so through Mike Smith, there's just like all sorts of connections here today. Mike Smith brought in a gentleman by the name of Matt Soeth from California last February. And he hosted an event for an organization that they started called I Can Help. And that started from some online bullying and cyberbullying that happened in California at one of their schools, and they thought we got to stop this. And something neat happened is students actually got other students to stop doing things from starting like a fake Facebook account from a teacher, and students called out the other students, and then that student took the page down. And so long story short, you can look it up, I Can Help Delete Negativity.org, I think, really long URL. Great organization. Well, they wanted to put on an event called #DigitalForGood, and they were looking for student examples of great things that students were promoting on social media, everywhere from humans of their school Instagram account showing pictures of students, all the way from Mitch starting his shipyard account in Snapchat. And so Heather, I tweeted out and I said in May, or April, probably around this time, I said, I will fly a student out from Nebraska to California to Twitter headquarters where the event was going to be hosted if a student gets picked from Nebraska. And Heather took advantage of that. She submitted Mitch for that award, and I got an email in May or June and said, hey, are you still planning on doing that? Because we nominated Mitch to come. I said, heck yeah, I'm going to go to Twitter headquarters. And so we flew out in September, and Mitch got to share his story. There were, I think, 13, 14 other students from across the world there. There was a gal from Sweden there in San Diego, and just got to share their stories. And Mitch got a chance to do that We got to see Twitter headquarters, and really neat experience. And that all stemmed from Mitch saying, "Yeah, I would love to help with Class Intercom." I still remember your first one of your tweets, and you were graduating, so you were totally checked out. But it was May 4th, and you put "May the 4th be with you," and put like a Star Wars little image, and posted that. And I was like, okay, this could be really cool. And now we've seen so many neat things with kids, all the kids, and she'll share more here, of adding emojis to tweets and just making social media fun. Not that all of us in the room don't, but the students have a totally different perspective. And so Mitch is just one great story of taking advantage of those opportunities and being able to share his story.
Okay, so obviously you start small. When you take on new projects like this, you start small. And so that was my goal. I had a student last spring, and I started small. So then over the summer, I had to brainstorm ideas of where can I grow this, how can I do this, keep it going, because we've started something awesome. People have seen what's going on. We had more consistency with sharing our story and getting content out there. So you can see this image right here shows my team of 6 right now. What I had done at the end of the year, sent a couple emails over the summer, and then met with some high school staff, coaches, and teachers in the fall, is I said I'm looking to grow my social media team. My goal in that was I want students that are involved in various activities. I want FBLA members, I want FCCLA, I want athletes, I want people in music, I want people that are going out making a difference in the community, part of different community partnership groups. And that's what we have right here. And they all have these very awesome strengths or just, passions and different skills that we work from. And so I have built a very good team. Now, is it like maxed out here? No. She's not pictured on here, but we had an interesting situation this fall when it was, or I don't remember if it was fall or whatever, FFA week. And I had the FFA sponsor come to me and say, hey, I've got our FFA leadership team, and they want to put out these tweets and social media posts on the Northwest. They wanted to go out on the Northwest page. If I give you a Google Doc, can you put those out every day? And I'm like, I don't know if I'll remember to do that, and then it's my fault if I don't. I said, how about this? How about you and I and the leader from your team meet together. I will give them access to the Class Intercom account. They can go in and schedule them. All I have to do is hit approve, so then I don't have to remember any of that. And it was so slick. Now, she hasn't necessarily tweeted anything else since, but what I'm saying is the variety of different things and opportunities. I have this team, but yet that's not the end all. If someone came to me and said, we have this activity planned, it's super easy for me to show them how to do it. I shared that account with it was actually a long-term sub that was doing it, and I gave her access to it as well, so she could add certain things and edit the content too. Again, she didn't do anything else after that, but it was like a 20-minute meeting and we had that opportunity. So these 6 individuals, we have a couple videos to show here in a second, but they all take part in different things. From FBLA, FCCLA, they're also in some of our digital media and broadcasting classes, so like Carter, he does a lot with graphics, so he'll share graphics to share out advertising different athletic events. He'll share out videos that are coming from our broadcast journalism class. Danny's in the music department a lot, so he's sharing a lot of stuff coming out from our music. Maddie, she just does amazing things in the classroom, so she's sharing different things. We had sheep brain dissection just a couple weeks ago, and so she did some awesome things with that. And just Taylor's at lots of different activities, so it's just a nice variety. Heidi and Megan are twins, and they live in the same house, so it's amazing. I feel like when one comes through, I get a notification from the other. It's almost like a little friendly competition. They do a nice job as well. So obviously when I say that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now it's time to start thinking about next year. I do want to say that the variety has been nice. So I have two seniors in there. So that I will have a nice group of juniors to mentor the next group that is coming up, going through there. So I'll let Taylor show the videos. He came out and did a couple interviews with them, and he can talk more about that. Do we have to?
Taylor Hogman, I'm a senior here at Northwest, and I like being a part of Class Intercom because being a part of the shipyard, it's mostly about sports, and I like Class Intercom because I can spread the word about all activities, which I think is pretty cool. So I think the Fleet is a very positive organization, And I think Class Intercom is the perfect way to spread the news about the league and make our school a more positive environment.
So that's Taylor. Best name ever. I do have a girl's name. Let's go to the next one. And I think this is Heidi.
This is Heidi. Yep.
My name's Heidi Cooper, and I'm a junior here at Northwest. And I wanted to be a part of Class Intercom because I'm on the dance team and in like some other activities like FCA and FBLA that don't maybe have as much, like people don't have as much knowledge about these activities. So this is like a perfect opportunity to help like spread that awareness, and that's why I just like to like be able to post things that not everyone always hears about.
Cool. So just one thing that I did want to mention too with what Heather and how she built this was through like an internship program. So you can talk to her more about that. She got some funding around that. And now Josh Allen's in the room. I want to give him a shout out too, because he's taken the idea from Heather from a team and implemented it with a single student. And she's got a designated amount of time every week. And gosh, Josh, or you should probably start paying her because the amount of work she's helping with you. But just a really neat opportunity when you give students kind of designated amount of time to create content, what they do with that. And she's gone all in. They do Instagram stories now. So that intern idea is really neat, and building a team really gets students to buy in. So I just wanted to add that before our next slide here.
Yes, because I do not have them in class. As
Right.
a district technology integrationist, I travel to 5 different buildings throughout the week on different days. So I'll talk more about my communication structure and how I have built in time to connect with them or communicate with them and what has worked best from that. One of the things I do want to mention through this whole process is just the trust factor. Obviously, when Taylor mentioned at the beginning, seeing the sticky note with the username and password on it, obviously if schools at that point were sharing it out, they had an element of trust. And I feel like this whole opportunity with this internship has built that trust factor, just to the fact that, yes, I get to approve it. When it comes through, I can glance over it and look at it and approve it. Do I have to skim it and look at it for, multiple minutes before? No, because it's something that I have built trust in them. 9 times out of 10, the only thing I change is I add our school hashtag. Sometimes they forget the hashtag, and that's just because we're very emoji heavy in the post, which is awesome. It's very obvious that students are creating because they're putting emojis. That was something Taylor had pointed out that was pretty awesome. So you can tell it's kids. We have evolved into, I've encouraged them to give themselves credit, especially when they're creating graphics, and I'll share some of those examples too. But when they create graphics, I encourage them to say graphic created by in their name, just because they deserve the credit. And I also am a big fan of digital portfolios. When you post on social media, you're creating your own digital portfolio. So if it's coming from your account, obviously that's part of your portfolio, but if you're posting on the school account, you want to have that documentation. So if any of those 6 students are going to do another internship somewhere else, or they want a career in marketing or something like that, they're applying for scholarships and they need that documentation, they have those opportunities to save that. So anyway, getting back to the trust, when did we start our Snapchat?
The fall, late fall.
So actually, I had the Snapchat idea for the school in my mind for a while. I just wasn't sure how to execute it. And I would say trust was, I had no record of what was happening behind the scenes. So I just kind of had to let that go. So I created the account and it kind of sat static. I remember Josh followed it, and I'm sure he got a conference meeting and he's like, Heather, we have to have Snapchat. That's just where it's at. I'm like, I know, you want to help me with it? And he's like, no. That's your job.
Thanks.
So anyway, we moved forward and I created it. But when they had that double authentication, and I talked through that with Taylor, and I think I talked through that with Josh, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So you give out the username and password in person to the student that's in charge of it, and then you get a code on your phone. So I got a code on my phone. And so then when they enter that code, then they now have access to that Snapchat account. So I had, you obviously to switch back and forth, that was probably the other piece of Snapchat that was hesitant for me, was with Instagram and Twitter, when you're in that platform, you can switch back and forth. But on Snapchat, you actually have to physically sign out and sign back in. And so it's kind of a little bit more, it's kind of a pain to do that. And so That was the other piece of that. But giving that account information, they needed to know the password so they could sign in and sign out and jump back and forth in their own personal account. So that double authentication allowed that. So again, I pulled 2 interns in. It was Heidi and Megan, and I said, how would you like to do this? And they were like, yeah. So that was like, 24 hours. I'm like, nothing's happening. And it was just, I had communicated with them, and they're like, what do you want? So slowly things started coming out. Now, is our Snapchat perfect yet? Are we sharing great things? Yes, but it's not as consistent. But the point of this is I built the trust factor and started that conversation. So my personal opinion is as Snapchat evolves and the sign in, sign out process becomes easier, or we can integrate that with something like class intercom, those types of things will be more consistent. About 3 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to join our high school, one of the high school music group of seniors at the Foreigner concert in Grand Island. I know, don't be jealous. And go backstage and do all that fun stuff. But when the choral director invited me, he's like, you're like the social media director of the school, and I want this on social media. And I'm thinking, no pressure. I'm going to post to Twitter, I'm going to put stuff on Facebook and Snapchat. It's all going to go smooth and I can handle this. So then that takes me back to the beginning of this presentation where I was like, this is so overwhelming. And the students helped. And so it dawned on me, I'm like, I trust these kids. Somebody can sign in. So I knew of a student that I could trust. No, he wasn't part of our social media team. He was actually someone that does a lot of behind the scenes work for the show choir and was there. And I said to Ryan, Ryan, I got this huge task for you. I said, can I trust you to run our school Snapchat? If I do the Twitter and the Facebook tonight at the concert, can you do the Snapchat? He's like, sure. His eyes lit up and he's like, really? You want me to do that? I'm like, yes. So of course we had to go through the authentication process, but the point of it is I trusted him with that, and his eyes lit up because he's like, wow, a teacher trusts me to use Snapchat for the school account. And he was like on fire all night with different stuff. It was amazing. And the best part about that is when he was done, I said, you know what, you have that on your phone, feel free to share. And I didn't look at it a whole lot, but within like 3 days, there was other random stuff that was going, and I knew it was him. I knew he had done that, and I saw it in the halls a couple days later. I'm like, Ryan, was that you? And he said, yeah, that was awesome. It was great. So just now my goal, when we look at future goals, and we're building that trust, my goals are to continue to add those opportunities for students like Ryan and other people to build that. And then the other piece of it is, I've also evolved into, so this is a picture, we had our Strive end of the year celebration, went out for pizza. And of course, I do Strive with Colleen Childers at Northwest. And so she had this picture, we took this picture, and she says, I'll send it to you to put on social media. And I'm like, okay. You know what I did? I sent it to Maddie. I sent it directly to Maddie, who was sitting there on my team, and on the email, I just sent it to her on email, and I said, Maddie, work your magic in class intercom for this. Sent it to her on email, and within 15 minutes, I had this magical post with emojis and stuff just talking about the Strive team. So it was giving her that opportunity, empowering her with that opportunity to create that. I could have done it, absolutely I could have done it. But it was definitely an opportunity to empower those students in something that they were very capable of and had done before. So that was where part of that trust has really been built, and something that I really value and work hard to achieve in that. So I mentioned earlier that they are not part of a class because of my role in the district. So this is kind of another evolution story. So you try to think about how are you going to communicate with high school kids who are not in your class. You're not always in the building. Some of them have college class, don't come into the building until like noon. Some of them leave early. What's the best way? So the first thing I talked to Taylor and I said, I think I'm going to start a Google Classroom. As you can see with the red X, fail, didn't work. It worked for like a week, but it was not successful. So we had a social media conference that we went to digitally. We met via Zoom with Taylor one day, and I knew that email wasn't working because anybody in the room, your kids check their email? It's a problem, isn't it? So I'm trying email and I'm telling him, just check your email. You know what, as much as I said it, they're not checking your email. I have one student that checks his email. Carter's the only one. Because he has that little icon and he has a little OCD, and he says, every time I see a number there, it drives me crazy. So if I want something done right then and there, I email him. But there's 5 other people in my group. So when we met for this social media conference virtually, we had some creation time, and I'll let Taylor talk a little bit about that here in a second. But I flat out said, okay, I tried to communicate with you through Google Classroom, and they all look at me like, yeah, you did. And I said, I've tried email. So tell me, what do I need to do so that I can get messages to all of you when I have something, or reminders, or promotions, or things? Because I've done things like, hey, the first person to create 5 posts or schedule 5 posts gets a $5 Sonnet card from me. Okay, it works, but but then some are like, it's not fair, I didn't read my email. They said, you need to use Remind, that's what everyone else is doing. So, since then, this was what, February? Mm-hmm. Since February, I've been using Remind, and it works like magic. They don't have to, it comes right to them. They don't have to physically go fetch it out of Classroom. They don't have to physically go fetch it out of email. It pops up there. And so that's been really, really handy. And when we talk about, the best ways to communicate, even though I don't have them in class, I can send it that way. Because it's not fair that I have to walk and look them up on PowerSchool and walk into the classroom and say, hey, Taylor, can you create this for me? Nope, I just put a little blurb in there that says, hey, we've got this going on, or I need a reminder about this, and then they can create from there. So I'll let Taylor talk about that social media day and a little bit about the creation stuff that he saw coming in from his portal side.
Yeah, so we hosted an event in Lincoln at our office there. And, a couple people, see you guys, a couple people in the room were there, and thankfully they didn't come. That's the week I was on Rosa Parksway going in Lincoln, and someone changed lanes and hit a light pole, and the light pole came down and smashed my Strive car. So I'm glad Northwest Aurora couldn't come, and they probably got more out of the conference because they stayed back and watched and got to actually build some things. So it was really neat what they created. So this is what it looks like in the app, and I can answer all those questions after the session. I want to make this more of a focus on what Heather's doing. But this is what it looks like. You can see a week's worth of content, and this was the week after the conference. And so they really, had any of those gals worked in Canva before?
No, that was one of the things. We had some time because
right.
They were incorporating drive time and lunchtime and all that, and we didn't have to worry about that because we were set. So we had that creation time, and that was one of the things I told Colleen that day. I said, let's teach them Canva.
Yep.
And then let's set a task list of things we want to create, like show them the calendar, make a list of things. So we just had them running Google Doc. I showed them Canva, and then we did a collaborative Google Doc and made a list of all the things. This was right before spring sports started, 2 days before. And so they put their initials by certain things and said, I'm gonna do this one, I'm gonna do this one, I'm gonna do this one. So.
Yeah, it was really neat, and that's the best way to get students creating content, because as you can tell, and this is a classic example of an ed tech tool, handing it to kids and then them not using it. It takes a ton of work, and Heather's put in the work, and that's why we're here to share this, and it gets me so excited to see someone take a tool and go beyond the technology, because it's about communication with the kids, teaching them how to create content and guiding them through that. And we'll see the fruit. There's a blood drive. You can see in the app that Taylor created it at a certain time, and then she's able to submit that to Heather. Heather gets a notification, and she can read through this. Heather's got some great stories of sending some stuff out with mistakes and then be able to correct those. You can leave notes and then put in links, and you can see the little, what is that, like a red light emoji for the blood drive. And then she was able to put her graphic in there as well that she made in Canva. So really neat way of, she took total ownership in that event rather than Heather having to take the time. And how many of you do run your social media at your school? In some capacity, so a lot of you. It takes a lot of time, right? And thought, right? Like thinking, and that drains you. And so for her to be able to do that, and then Heidi to be able to do this for another event, you know all the events that are happening at your school, and you can just put the list out to the kids and say, hey, here's the list of events, let's create some content around that. Because we all know that now our parents and community alumni have become totally reliant on our social media channels, right? The website is important, but social media is where they're getting all of your information. And so what better way to get your students involved in that? So you can also leave notes. So Heather was able to leave a note to Heidi saying, this is awesome, and it has a timestamp on that, and this is a great example too. She didn't put any emojis on this, but she did give herself credit. And I don't know if you added that later, or looks like she put that in herself.
She did.
Yeah,
She did.
I did. And then this is the spring sports one. So you can see emojis of all the different spring sports. So just another little thing. No offense to Heather or even myself, I probably wouldn't have thought of that. Now I'm starting to because I see kids.
Yeah. It's taken me 15 minutes to find all the emojis to
Right. Yeah. There you go.
She decided like that.
Yeah. So that's another great example. They've got their school hashtag on there, and then a neat graphics showing all the different spring sports that they had. So they were able to probably pull those from journalism class and be able to put those into Canva. So those are just some good examples.
Heather,
Yeah,
do
go
you guys
ahead.
have one social media account, or do you have a different one for like every group?
So we have just our GINW Vikings, and so the class intercom is going to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So like we have 4 K8 buildings, or 3 K8s and a K5. That content is completely separate.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer
Yeah,
your question?
like, because like right now, like our baseball team has an account, and our
Right.
basketball team has an account, and so
They
we
do have those accounts, and you can retweet that content
Okay.
by looking at the social feed in the portal.
Okay.
Our kids aren't necessarily retweeting that. We kind of encourage our parents and patrons to follow the hashtag. So I tell like your soccer team, your soccer accounts, your volleyball accounts to use the hashtag, and that kind of helps keep everyone streamlined
Yep.
onto that. But the Northwest specific stuff is coming from the class intercom and created by those students because it's that internship opportunity.
And that has the most following too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That help?
Yeah.
Okay. So as we kind of end things, and I want to talk about where our goals are and what we're doing with this, one thing I truly want to mention, and this is something that I tell people, my favorite part about this is the digital leadership these kids are displaying and learning. They're creating content for our school. It's well beyond an audience of what they have on their own social media platform. It's an experience for them. They're becoming digital leaders. And more than anything with my passion in digital citizenship, it's just an authentic way to teach it. I don't have to stand and deliver. I know Taylor mentioned a couple coachable moments through some of the posts. So I'll just mention it briefly. There was, and it's nothing terrible, it's just how mistakes are made on social media. We've all created something where we typed it super fast, whether it's an email or a social media post, and we transpose letters. But that spring sports jamboree one, was that incorrect? Did we fix that on there, or is it incorrect on that image? I didn't even look. So
I thought it was a different
that
one, but-
spring sports jamboree. I think it went out in the morning or a Sunday night, and like 5 hours later, our AD texted me. And he's like, "Did you create that spring sports jamboree post? Because there's a spelling error in there."
Gotcha.
No, I didn't create it, but I approved it. So that process, going back to the communication, I went into Facebook and Twitter and I fixed jamboree on the text part, and then I looked, I'm like, oh crap, the image is incorrect too. The graphic had jamboree spelled just missing the B. Well, I didn't create that in Canva. So through a remind, I was able to quickly message the student and say, hey, can you do me a quick favor? You misspelled this, and it was like within 2 minutes, she had it fixed for me. So it wasn't a big, huge crisis. It was interesting, the process of how I became aware of it, but I felt like it was just another good it wasn't anything bad. It was just a great way for our AD, myself, and the student to just reflect on those things happen. Here's how we fix it, because it happens. It's just part of life. Things are, messed up. You make mistakes, and I thought that was just very powerful. So I think that was worth sharing with all of you because it's not perfect. That wasn't inappropriate by any means. It was just an actual natural human error. So where we're going with this, so I kind of go back to communication. So the class intercom has provided us ways for students to be leaders. It's provided them real experiences, whether they're creating the graphic designs in classes and sharing them out, whether they're at the activities and creating the content for us, that digital citizenship piece, and that digital leadership piece. We're able to share this out and communicate with our community, our parents, our students, our patrons, anyone that's following that. So I just want to add another piece, and I'm thankful to Taylor and his team at Strive for going behind the scenes. How many of you guys have Amazon Alexas or Alexas at home? Okay, So how cool is it to have Alexa say, Alexa, what's my flash briefing? And it says, good morning, your daily flash briefing from GI Northwest is, this week we have student registration, blah, 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 I'm not gonna go on. But we now have that integrated in, and this is Carter. He is part of our digital media team. He's a student that does videos and graphics. He does not like to be in front of camera. So in his broadcast journalism classes and in his digital media classes, he's like the person filming. He's the voice overriding things, and I'm like, this is perfect. You don't like to be in front of camera, you can be the voice. So not only is it, we're now sharing content through Alexa, we're sharing content through Alexa with a student voice. So that was one of the things when Taylor mentioned it to me, I don't even remember how the conversation went.
Heather just takes my crazy ideas, like, yeah, sure, we'll mess up and try things.
I said, this will be really awesome. I think I have the perfect student to try it.
Yeah.
I said, but the goal is if I start this, I don't want my voice behind it. This has to be another opportunity for students. This has to be something for students. And so Carter and I work collaboratively on a Google Doc. I've kind of started creating the script for him of what to say. I allow him to edit. This has only been going on for 3 weeks now. I think we've done 3. So this is very, very, very new. But the goal in it is that, and we do once a week. So I start creating on Monday, have it set by Wednesday. Since Carter reads his email, I send him an email on Wednesday. And I say, can you record this by Friday? So he records it, sends it to me in Google Drive, and then I'm able to upload on Sunday so that Monday morning when you wake up, you hear that flash briefing up to date. So right now we're weekly. If I look ahead with goals, my goal now that Carter's kind of done it this year, he's a junior, thank goodness. Next year, hopefully he'll mentor a couple others and maybe we can do it a little bit more frequently, or we can create it more of a conversation where the two of them are reading the content. And then going beyond that, I want them to start looking at the patterns of the things that I'm sharing so that they can start creating the script of what to say. I'm very careful about how detailed I am, especially this spring, because I don't want to say we've got track on Tuesday, oh, and then not happening because of snow. We all know this has been horrible, 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 with content going out or things being shared and things being changed. So one of the things that I have decided to make a goal with this whole sharing on Alexa is just sharing. We've got great things happening. Our soccer team, our track team, they're all in action this week. Make sure you go back to our website to check updated and most current times, locations, that type of thing. And then I've tried to share district-wide stuff, like we have our online registration open now. Last week we shared that we want you to know we'll be streaming our commencement, so that was on there too.
Nice.
We obviously haven't built a huge audience yet, so I haven't gotten a lot of feedback of people saying, why haven't you shared this or why haven't you done that? Number, especially since it's not a class, and we want to keep sharing it out. But I did encourage them to start adding their Twitter handle behind it or their name or whatever, just because they deserve the credit, just like anyone else for something that they created.
Yeah, really making it a team, I think, has been key to it, and starting small is what we advise too, just because if you have 100 kids trying to post things, it could get a lot out of control.
I'm just thinking that these 6,
Right.
7 kids are getting a really great
Yes.
message in how to create stuff. But is everybody else wanting the same thing? Or in your schools, maybe not, you probably have classes that are, I'm just coming from a super.
So I have a couple, and I don't have people like emailing me or beating down my doors, but I do send out emails to teachers saying, do you have other kids that have shown an interest, in journalism, for example. And we have a couple more kids in the broadcast journalism class and digital media classes that have access to it, and a couple more teachers also. So if they want to share stuff out as well, kind of like I shared with the FFA.
Yeah, good question.